Okay, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, your next witness.
Good morning, Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Tara Roberts.
All right, let's see if we can get her on here. Ms. Roberts, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Ms. Roberts? Ms. Roberts? I can see her. Excuse me? Yeah, you can bring them in. See if she's on mute or not. She's right there. Oh. Can you hear me, Ms. Roberts?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We can't see her on the big screen. Just do a split screen so we can start, please. All right. Go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead. It's the best we're going to do right now.
Okay. Good morning. Would you please state your name for the record?
Tarlee Roberts.
Ms. Roberts, how do you know Johnny Depp?
I manage his island in the Exuma Keys in the Bahamas for the past 15 years.
Ms. Roberts, where do you live?
I live on the island, and I have a home in Nassau and in Long Island, Bahamas, which I try to get to as frequently as possible.
Can you please describe Mr. Depp's private island generally?
My duties on the private island would be to maintain the island, the buildings, the houses, logistics, not included or limited to provisioning fuel, gas, groceries, just day-to-day operations, staff, and kind of like an estate just in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. Your Honor, I would like to pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 49, which has previously been submitted into evidence.
Okay.
And Mr. Gibson, if you could play this, and Your Honor, if we could publish this to the jury. Thank you. We can take that down. Ms. Roberts, do you recognize what is shown in that video?
Yes, that's Johnny's house on the island.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibson, can you please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 348? And this hasn't been submitted into evidence yet, so let's first just play that for Ms. Roberts.
All right.
Ms. Roberts, do you recognize what is shown in that video?
Yeah, that's his house and closet area.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to, plaintiff moves to admit this into evidence.
All right, 348 in evidence. Do you wish to have it published?
Yes, can we please publish
Okay.
that to the jury? And Mr. Gibson, once it's published, if we could play that again. And Ms. Roberts, what is that doorway with the beads that was just shown in that video?
That's the entrance to the closet
Okay, thank you. We can take that down.
in his house.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, I believe you mentioned that you manage staff on the island. How many people work with you on the island?
Myself and three others is Jason Major, goes by CJ, Stephen Farrow, and Rico Major.
Is this, I believe the witness is not being shown to the jury right now on their screens. Thank you.
No. The witness. There you go.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, how are you compensated for your work on the island?
I receive a monthly salary.
Other than this monthly salary, what other sources of income do you have?
I get dividends and rental from family properties and businesses that we have.
Since you've been working for Mr. Depp, how often have you seen him?
On average, 2-3 times a year. Sometimes it was longer, more visits. Sometimes I didn't see him for a period of time, depending on what his schedule was or what was happening on the island.
And how would you describe your interactions with Mr. Depp?
The island was a very family atmosphere, dinners together. He was very social, funny, humorous, very kind with all of us, and very outgoing. Enjoyed working with him and for him.
When you first started working on Mr. Depp's island, who would come down to the island?
At the beginning, it was Vanessa and the children.
Objection.
When he started dating
Relevance.
Amber.
All right, hold on a minute, ma'am. Objection.
Relevance.
It goes to just Ms. Roberts' knowledge of who came down to the island with
We
Mr.
can
Depp.
move forward. Next question.
Okay. Ms. Roberts, Ms. Roberts, are you aware if Mr. Depp brought, or how often did Mr. Depp bring guests with him to the island?
He had guests. He would bring Amber and Amber with her friends, and also I had, on one of the occasions, I had Paul Bettany and his wife and his children here on one of the trips.
And when did the Bettnys come down to the island?
Sometime in the summer of July 2013.
What happened when the Bettnys came down?
It was a normal trip. We had an incident where I was asked to have Amber leave the island. I scheduled a flight for her to leave to go to Florida that morning, and then that afternoon I was told to bring her back, and I arranged for a flight for her to come back that afternoon to the island.
When did you first meet Ms. Heard?
I believe it was shortly after they started dating.
What was your impression of Ms. Heard when you first met her?
Objection.
Oh, they were very much in love.
Relevance.
Okay, go ahead. Next question.
I think Ms. Bredhoff withdrew her objection.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so Ms. Roberts, you can answer. What was your impression of Ms. Heard when you first met her?
Oh, they were very nice, a couple in love. She cooked for him, cleaned up, they took care of each other. They were a very happy couple.
When, if at all, did that change?
With each visit, it changed. More of it was more not like an island life anymore. It was more of wines and more requests, simple things, toiletries, to have things here in place before they came or she came as well. So it, luggage changed. We got more and more luggage. Just things evolved and kind of mushroomed a bit.
How often would you see Ms. Heard on the island when she was in a relationship with Mr. Depp?
I would, on average, every day, taking meals, cleaning houses, sometimes more.
And how often would Ms. Heard come down to the island?
At the beginning, probably the same 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes 3 times with her friends and family and Johnny.
During your interactions with Ms. Heard, what, if any, changes did you observe of Ms. Heard?
The taking care of the cooking the meals, we then had a chef come to cook. It was more of a formal island with chefs and housekeepers and things like that. Changed, yeah, pretty much that.
Ms. Roberts, were you on the island in August 2014 for Mr. Depp's detox?
Yes, I was.
Who else was on the island?
I flew to Nassau and met Johnny, Amber, and Deb. I flew them back to the island, and then a couple of.
Ms. Roberts, I believe you froze there for a second. I heard you say Johnny, Amber, and Deb, and then you were cut off for a second.
A couple of days later, Dr. Kipper arrived.
What do you recall about that time that Mr. Depp came down to the island in August 2014?
That he was going to be here. They were going to be here for an extended period of time, at least a month or longer. And so we provisioned for a month for the trip. And after about a week or 2, they left.
Where was Mr. Depp staying for the detox?
In his house.
Is that the same house that was just shown in those videos earlier?
Yes, it was.
How often would you see Mr. Depp when he was on the island for the detox?
I was every day, but not face to face, just from delivering, replenishing the house, delivering supplies, waters, and things like that, linens, and changing things out. So glimpsing him, not a conversation as it used to be.
How was Mr. Depp when you saw him?
He was always asleep on the couch.
While Ms. Heard was on the island for the detox, what, if any, injuries did you observe on Ms. Heard?
I didn't see anything.
After Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard left the island, what happened next?
We would go into the house and break it down, empty out the refrigerators, change the linens, collect the laundry, straighten the house back up again.
After they left, what, if any, property damage did you observe?
There wasn't any.
Ms. Roberts, to what extent were you involved in Mr. Depp and Mrs. Heard's wedding in February 2015 on the island?
Pretty much all aspects of it, logistics, work permits, getting things set up onto the island, to the island, staff, provisions, building of the tents, and organizing transportation of guests to and from the island.
When did you first hear that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were getting married on the island?
Objection calls for hearsay and relevance.
What's the relevance of when she heard?
I can move on.
Okay, next question.
What communications, if any, did you have with Ms. Heard about the wedding?
We were given information on a schedule to better help me schedule and the provisioning of what would be on the island, beverages and food and things like that. We were given a schedule for daily things were going to happen each day, what time foods were, when people were coming in, how many people would be at meals, just so I had a better idea of planning of what was happening. It was detailed. It was what was happening each day and then it was the rehearsal night, and there would be, we had scheduled, it would be dinner, dancing, drugs, music, and then the wedding. We were very conscious about doing the wedding. The next day we were doing the wedding, the ceremony, and we were specific on time. Privacy was very important. We were very careful of people taking pictures. I think everybody was given disposable cameras and asked not to take pictures. I was concerned about that also, but we were doing the ceremony at sunset, so there really wouldn't be issue with what paparazzi people and things like that. And shortly when the ceremony was about to happen, it actually happened earlier than it was scheduled. The bridal party and Amber showed up early, and we were still scrambling for flowers and setting up and getting beverages and snacks down there. And there was a plane circling overhead, and it would just kept on circling and taking pictures, and the ceremony proceeded earlier than was scheduled.
Did you observe Mr. Depp drinking alcohol at the wedding?
Objection leading.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. Ms. Roberts, as part of the provisioning for the wedding, did you order alcohol for the wedding?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Okay. Ms. Roberts, what did you order for the wedding in February 2015?
I was given a list of food. I was given a list of beverages for wines, champagnes. I was asked to have Dr. Pepper and sugar-free Red Bull here, because at that time that was what Mr. Depp or Johnny was drinking, was Dr. Pepper and sugar-free Red Bull.
Okay. Did you observe Ms. Heard drinking alcohol at the wedding?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Who did you observe drinking alcohol at the wedding?
Pretty much everybody was drinking and doing shots and celebrating. It was a party.
Ms. Roberts, I'd like to discuss with you when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were on the island in December 2015. Who came down to the island with them?
I flew to Nassau to meet them, which is what I normally do. I meet himself, Johnny, and whoever comes to the island. I fly to Nassau to meet them, just to make sure that the transition is smooth with customs and immigration. So I flew to Nassau, and I met Johnny, Amber, his children, and a friend of the children, and load the luggage onto the caravan plane, and we boarded the plane and came to the island. And a couple days into the trip, Alice and Greg and Alice's 3 children and a nanny came to the island as well.
Who are Alice and Greg?
Alice is a clothes designer, and Greg was her partner, and I believe he's a photographer.
When did you first interact with Ms. Heard when she came to the island in December 2015?
At the airport when I flew to Nassau to meet everybody. Usually when they come down off the plane, you know, there's hugs and kisses and chatting for a couple minutes while the luggage is transferred.
How close were you to Ms. Heard?
Close, hug, kiss, you know, how are you, talk, same with everybody. So face to face, cheek to cheek.
What, if any, makeup did you observe Ms. Heard wearing when you first interacted with her?
I don't recall if she was or was not wearing makeup. If she wore makeup, it was very natural. I don't think often she wore makeup on the island. I don't recall her wearing makeup.
What, if any, injuries did you notice on Ms. Heard?
I didn't notice any.
Ms. Roberts, you mentioned that Gregory, a photographer, came to the island during that time. How often did you observe Gregory on the island?
I interacted every day because meals went down and changing the sheets and cleaning the room. So I see everybody every day there.
And when you saw him, what was he doing? There was a photo shoot on the island. Amber was wearing Alice's clothes, and they were doing a photo shoot on the beach. And Greg was taking the pictures. What, if anything, do you remember about that particular time that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard came down to the island?
There was a incident between Johnny and Amber here during that trip.
Okay, can you please describe that incident?
On the evening, we kind of called it a night. Dinner was finished. We wrapped everything up down here at the staff area in the kitchen. Myself and CJ came to the office later on that evening, and Johnny was in the office up here, and he was agitated, kind of walking back and forth. I'd asked him if he needed anything because I wasn't sure if he was up here to get something or was looking for something, which wouldn't be unusual for people to come up here. So he was here, talked for a couple minutes, the three of us, and a couple minutes later, Amber came into the office and the three of us were in the office, and Amber came in, and she was asking him to tell him to come back to the house. Please come back. I'm sorry, come back. And he stood here, reluctant to go, didn't want to go, and a little exchange back and forth. He left the office and got into his vehicle and started it up, and Amber went outside and stood in front of the vehicle so that didn't drive away. Amber was standing in front of it, and again, she was asking him to don't leave. I'm sorry, come back to the house. After a couple minutes, she got in the vehicle and they left to go back to their house.
What happened after they went back up to the house?
CJ and I were still in the office and weren't really sure. Decided that maybe it would be best if we just drove up there just to make sure that everything was okay. And so we got in the golf cart and we drove up to their house, got into the parking lot, and his vehicle was in the parking lot, and you could hear them inside inside the house yelling, Amber yelling and Johnny answering back, and you could really hear what was being said. We stood there for a couple minutes, CJ and myself, and then you started to hear, it became audible. Amber was telling him that he was a washed up actor. He was going to die a fat, lonely old man. Then you heard, you hit me with a can. You heard Johnny say, you hit me with a can. And then he came down the steps
and Amber was behind him, and she had a bottle in her hand. It was removed, and there was a brief pause at the moment, I think, of initial shock or uncertainty of why, that we were there. Neither Johnny nor Amber knew that we were there. He proceeded to walk back to the John Deere, and she again walked. He was just sitting in the seat. Amber came up to him and was asking him to come back in the house, that she was sorry, please come back in the house. He didn't come out of the seat, and she was hugging and kissing him, and I love you, I love you. She was telling him I loved you. He didn't react. Johnny sat there, eventually got out of the John Deere, and proceeded to start to walk away. At that time, Amber started to grab at him and his shirt, and trying to pull him back to the house, just basically viciously trying to pull him back and get him back into the house, and yelling at him. And at that point, I was between them, and felt it was best, and I was getting worried about what was going to happen, and it was best that I remove him from the situation. And so CJ took Amber back to the house, and I walked Johnny over to the cafe, which was basically 30 seconds away from the house, because it was the only place I could take him to at the time.
And you mentioned that Ms. Heard was viciously trying to pull Mr. Depp back. Can you explain what you mean by that?
It was like clawing, grabbing at his clothes, grabbing his hair, trying to pull him back, like an angry, like he was leaving and come back. He couldn't leave in the vehicle because the keys had been taken out. So there wasn't a way for Johnny to drive away. The only way was for him to walk away, and it wasn't a pleasant situation of wanting him to not leave, and angry and yelling and just yelling, come back, don't leave, and things like that.
At any point, did Mr. Depp hit or touch Ms. Heard?
Objection leading.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
Ms. Roberts, how did Mr. Depp react to Ms. Heard viciously grabbing him?
He didn't. He stood there with his arms by his side, and he didn't do anything.
Okay. Ms. Roberts, when you were back in the cafe with Mr. Depp, what happened next?
I was concerned because I had heard him say that he'd gone.
Objection to her being concerned. That's not responsive
I'll sustain as to concerned, all right?
Okay, Ms. Roberts, without testifying as how you felt, what did you observe when you went back to the cafe with Mr. Depp?
When we went back to the cafe, he had a mark across the bridge of his nose. I got a bag of ice to put on it so that it wouldn't swell, just to make sure that it wasn't bleeding. And he walked over to the love seat at the cafe, and he laid down and went to sleep. And CJ came back over, and I asked CJ to stay there for the remainder of the evening, for the remainder of the morning. And I left CJ inside the cafe, and I left Johnny on the couch.
When did you next see Ms. Heard?
That morning, I saw her that morning.
How close were you to Ms. Heard when you interacted with her the next morning?
Conversation, in a couple feet away.
When you saw her, how did she appear?
They had guests leaving, and it was kind of a normal morning, going down to the beach to see the guests leave.
What, if any, makeup was Ms. Heard wearing?
Again, I'm not sure if she wore makeup on the island. If it was very natural looking.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Ms. Heard?
I didn't observe any.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Mr. Depp?
The marking across the bridge of his nose.
When did Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp leave the island?
I believe they left that afternoon. The guests left in the morning, and I believe they left that afternoon.
After Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp left the island, what did you do next?
Our usual, we go into the buildings and we break them down. We empty out the refrigerators, garbage, take all the perishables out of the house, straighten the place up, take the linens away, things like that.
What did you observe when you went through that process?
The island was as it was when they arrived. The only thing that was different was there was the liquid on the deck with a can, I believe, of mineral spirits or something there next to it, which had leaked out onto the deck. And then in the over the railing were paintbrushes and art supplies, paintbrushes, paint tubes, big jars that the paints are in, and those were all scattered in the bush.
Ms. Roberts, when is the first time you provided testimony about this incident in December 2015?
I believe it was for another case in May 2020.
Ms. Roberts, how often have you seen Mr. Depp drink alcohol on the island?
He goes through periods of time where he's been here and he doesn't drink, and it's non-alcoholic Beck's or something like that. It varies. Sometimes he drinks when he's here, sometimes he doesn't.
How often have you seen Ms. Heard drink alcohol on the island?
She drank wine. She drank wine with her drink was wine with dinner, maybe in the afternoon, but I know definitely with dinner.
Did you observe Ms. Heard drinking alcohol when Mr. Depp was not drinking alcohol?
Objection leading.
No, sustained is leading.
Okay. How often have you seen Mr. Depp drunk?
I would know he has a huge tolerance for alcohol. I haven't seen him passed out drunk or anything like that. So he drinks, but I haven't seen him passed out drunk.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Nothing further.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Roberts, the salary you receive for managing the Bahama Island is approximately $10,000 a month, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so that comes out to $120,000 a year? Correct? Okay. And you've been receiving that salary for many years, correct?
Correct.
Right. In fact, I think you got a raise to $10,010 in 2018. Do you remember that?
No, I don't know the exact number, but I know I get that a month.
Okay. And that's in addition to all of the expenses, correct? For running the island.
The expenses.
Of running the island.
I get a salary every month. I'm not sure what you're asking me.
So the other people that are on the island, to the extent they work, they get a different salary, right?
Yes.
Okay, and all of the expenses you have, you talked about what you have to do to provision the island and everything else and run it. All of those expenses are paid separately, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you said you've been managing this island for 15 years for Mr. Depp, is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
All right. Now, let's talk for a moment about those two videos that you testified to were part of the house. The first video was missing both the closet and the bathroom, correct?
I don't remember. I'd have to look at it again.
All right. And the
There
second...
was sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You didn't come through. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I think in the first video, the beads were the closet, and then there was the bathroom next to the closet.
Okay, that was
Isn't
the
that what you asked me?
that was the second video.
Oh.
Do you know who?
Sorry.
Do you know who took those videos?
Oh, I did.
Okay. When did you take those videos?
Oh, it would have to be, I'm not sure, a couple of years ago, maybe longer. I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you take those videos for the UK trial?
I don't recall if it was for that.
Right. Is there a reason that the closet and the bathroom were left out of the first video?
No, I stood in the house and did a circle around of the house.
Okay. Who asked you to make that video?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Was it Mr. Waldman? Adam Waldman?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Can't recall?
I can't remember who asked me.
Okay.
No, I can't.
Okay. Now the second video, that shows the closet and then there's a door there. Would you agree that door opens up into a bathroom?
Next to the closet, yes.
Okay. And we don't have a video of the bathroom, correct?
I don't believe there was a video of the bathroom.
And no one asked you to make a video of the bathroom, correct?
Objection, relevance.
I'll overrule it now. Okay.
Correct?
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure if anybody asked me to. I don't believe I videotaped the bathroom.
Okay. And my question was, and no one asked you to videotape the bathroom, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, let's talk for a moment about the logistics of the island. So, Mr. Depp's house, we've seen the inside of, and you said that the cafe was a 30-second walk, I think you said. How many yards?
Yeah. I don't know. I walk it. It's just outside his house through the parking lot and walkway to the cafe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, and the cafe is where Mr. Depp would regularly have his meals, correct?
Correct. All the guests would have their meals there.
Okay, including Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard if she was there, and their children, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and
For
then
dinners, yes.
and then you were located on the other side of the island, correct? That's where you stay?
Or I stay in the middle of the island, yes.
Okay, how far away is that from the cafe and the house?
Objection, compound.
I'll sustain the objection if you want.
How far away is it from the house?
Where I stay,
Yes.
probably a 3-minute golf cart ride,
Okay.
5-minute walk.
Okay. And then when other guests come, I think you were talking about tents. Do they stay in tents?
No, the tents were erected for the wedding, and then they were dismantled. And sometimes we would erect them if we were asked to, just in case somebody wanted to stay there. But people didn't stay in the tents; they stayed in the buildings here.
Okay. So how much accommodation can you handle in the buildings for other guests? I'm not talking about the house, Mr. Depp's house. We've seen that. But how many people can actually be accommodated in the buildings?
We have a 2-bedroom yurt on Brando Beach. We have a beach house which has the bed in it, and then we have what we call a roundhouse, which has a bed in it as well.
Okay. Now, when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were visiting, whether they had the children there or not, typically, would you bring the meals to the cafe for each of the meals?
No, sometimes I would take them to the house. It depended on where they wanted to eat.
All right, and then typically would you join them for the meal, or would you leave the meal and then come back and clean up afterwards?
Objection compound.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
All right, we'll take that one at a time. Typically, would you bring the meals to them?
Myself or one of the workers here would take the meals.
Okay, how often was it you that would take them?
How often? Maybe every other day, every day. It depended on how, if people were eating in their buildings or eating together.
All right, and would you stay and eat the meal with them, or would you leave?
If we were invited for dinner, we would all eat together. Usually we would take the food to the places and leave.
Okay. And then would you be called to come pick them up?
No, we would sometimes go back in the evenings on our own and clean up and turn some of the lights off. And sometimes we would do it in the morning. It depended on what was happening.
Okay. So other than bringing the meals, and it could be you or somebody else, how often did you interact with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard during the days when they were on the island?
On average, every day.
In what context other than delivering the meals and picking them up?
Oh, just see if anything was needed, if everything was all right, things like that. Generally passing them if they were walking or in the office or on the beach.
Okay. Now, would it be fair to say that you weren't spending 24/7 with them?
No, I didn't live with them, no.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that you don't know what they were doing during the times that you weren't passing them by or bringing meals?
Yes, unless they were on the beach.
Okay.
Then I would know. But
So you wouldn't know what happened, what would be taking place within the house, for example, when you weren't there, correct?
correct.
And you wouldn't know whether Mr. Depp was taking drugs, correct?
Correct.
And you wouldn't know whether Mr. Depp was drinking, correct?
I would only know by cleaning up.
Okay. And you wouldn't know, you wouldn't know from cleaning up necessarily whether it was Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard, or somebody else, would you?
Objection
Depending on the
compound.
beverage or what was-
Overruled, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Please continue.
Unless I would know what it was by what was in the garbage or left out of who consumed or what was consumed, I would be able to know.
Okay. And you wouldn't know what arguments, if there were any, were taking place in that house behind closed doors, right?
Correct.
And you wouldn't know whether there was any kind of physical abuse that was taking place behind those closed doors, correct?
I wouldn't know. Correct.
Okay. Now, let me just take you for a moment to the December 2015 timeframe. How much advance notice are you typically given for when Mr. Depp and his entourage are going to arrive and for how long they're going to stay?
Objection compound.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
All right, let's break it down. How much notice are you given when Mr. Depp and his entourage are coming?
It varies. Sometimes it's a couple days, sometimes it's a couple weeks.
So how much notice were you given in December of 2015 to who would be coming for Christmas on the Bahama Island?
I believe sometime in November
Okay.
for that trip.
All right. And in November, how many people were you told were coming for Christmas on the island?
I don't recall how many people.
It was a lot more than Amber, Johnny, Lily Rose, Jack, and Lily Rose's boyfriend, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
In fact, it was Amber's parents, correct?
I believe so.
And it was Rocky Pennington and Josh Drew, correct?
I believe they were on the list.
And Rocky Pennington's parents?
Yes, I believe they were on the list.
Do you recall them canceling?
Objection, hearsay.
I recall,
How is that hearsay?
I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
there was a change to the guests.
When did you learn of that?
I don't recall, maybe a couple weeks after, maybe it's beginning of December, maybe middle of December. I'm not sure.
Do you recall if it was after December 15?
I don't recall.
Did you think that was a little strange that here these people were going to be at
Objection.
Christmas on the island and suddenly they cancel?
Objection, relevance.
I think it's highly relevant.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
What, if anything, were you told about why they canceled?
Objection, hearsay.
Party opponent admission.
Well, if you
Well,
want
you
a
don't know.
foundation for that.
Okay. Who told you that Amber's parents, her best friend and fiance, and her best friend's parents were suddenly canceling coming for Christmas on the island?
Objection, compound.
I'll allow that. Go ahead.
I don't know who told me, but I did receive I did receive information that they weren't coming and somebody else was coming instead.
And who was that somebody else coming instead?
That it would be Alice and it would be Alice and Greg and the children and the nanny.
And they were coming later, right?
They would be joining. That I think was the words.
Okay. So on the December trip, you testified about a few arguments between Amber and Johnny, right? Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You weren't present when Johnny sustained the gash on his nose, correct?
I wasn't there. No.
Okay. And you weren't present when the mess was made through the paints that you've described, correct?
No.
And so you don't know whether there had been a physical altercation and that led to throwing a paint can to try to slow down Johnny, right?
No, I just heard yelling in the house.
Okay, but that yelling in the house wasn't necessarily the same time, was it? You don't know, do you?
No, it was all in the same. Okay, no.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the summer of 2013. Are you aware that Paul Bettany claims he's never met Amber?
Objection, relevance.
What's the
And calls for
The
hearsay.
relevance is that she testified that he was there on the island with her.
And calls for hearsay.
I can ask the question and see if she says.
All right, I'll allow the question. Go ahead.
Can you repeat it?
Are you aware that Paul Bettany has said that he never met Amber Heard?
No, I'm unaware. I don't know that.
Well, let's stay on the summer of 2013 if we can. Do you have a recollection of Amber and Johnny, Lily Rose and Jack taking one final trip on the yacht that Johnny was going to be selling to J.K. Rowling?
I don't know what year that was. I don't know what year that was, but I do remember the yacht being sold.
If I tell you it was July of 2013, does that help refresh your recollection? July 9?
Yeah,
All right. Now,
July, no, it doesn't. I just know the yacht was sold.
okay, and you made arrangements, did you not, for a captain to captain the yacht and for them to go out on the yacht?
No, I didn't have any responsibility for the yacht and the crew on the yacht.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of being called because Lily Rose and Jack were upset and they wanted to leave the yacht and have a helicopter take them away?
Objection, hearsay, and compound.
I'm asking whether she has a recollection of this.
I'll allow the question.
Can you ask me it again?
Do you have a recollection of Lily Rose and Jack being upset on the yacht and wanting to leave it immediately, so you arranged for a helicopter to come in to fly them away with Amber?
Objection, compound.
I'll allow it. Okay, let's just hear.
I don't know if Lily Rose and Jack were upset. I do know that I did arrange for transportation off the island at the time.
And in fact, Amber went with Lily Rose, correct?
It was Amber and her friend and Lily Rose.
Okay. And Jack decided at the last minute to stay back, correct?
I don't know if he decided last minute. He stayed.
Okay. Do you recall Lily Rose telling you that she was upset because her father was drinking and trying to hide it from him?
Objection, hearsay.
I'm asking whether she has a
I'll
recollection.
sustain the objection to
Okay.
that.
Then I'll ask the next one. Do you recall Mr. Depp passing out in the sand face first?
I recall that he was passed out on the beach. He was out on the beach. Yes.
Okay. And do you recall Jack calling you because he was concerned?
Objection, hearsay.
That's just asking if he called. I haven't asked what he said.
No, you did. I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of Jack being present when Mr. Depp was passed out face first in the sand?
Yes.
And do you have a recollection of Jack being upset?
I don't have a recollection of him being upset.
Do you have a recollection of him being happy about it?
No, I didn't speak with Jack about it.
Okay. But you recall that Mr. Depp was passed out face first in the sand, correct?
Objection, asked and answered.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about makeup for a moment. So you don't know what type of makeup regimen Amber uses every day, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in fact, you don't know, you said at one point you're not sure, but it's a natural look. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And would you agree that there are a number of different types of makeup you can use that would still give you a natural look?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll allow it.
I'm guessing there is, yes.
Okay. Okay. And there's sun in the Bahamas, right?
Most of the time.
Do you know what Amber wears for sunscreen?
I think it was, at one point I had a brand Shishido or something like that was on the island that we provided.
And do you know whether Amber brought her own as well?
I don't know.
Do you know whether Amber had a skin condition?
I wasn't told.
Okay. But I take it you didn't ask.
No, I wouldn't have asked if somebody had a skin condition.
Okay. The wedding. The wedding was planned at sunset, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, it went forward at sunset, correct?
It went earlier. It was earlier than sunset.
So your recollection is that there's no sunset pictures at the wedding?
Or any
Okay.
there was sunset pictures.
Okay. So, last couple questions. The makeup or not makeup, you were asked whether you observed any injuries on Amber in the December 2015 timeframe. Do you believe Amber would cover up bruises to hide them from the kids?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll sustain this.
Do you have any understanding, based on your knowledge of Amber, whether she would try to cover up any bruises or cuts
Same
to
objection.
keep them from the kids?
I'll sustain the objection.
You said that you didn't believe that Amber was wearing much makeup, but you said she participated in a photo shoot in December 2015. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Do you know whether Amber was wearing any makeup for a photo shoot?
I'm not sure the part that I saw, she was in and out of the water.
Do you know whether Amber would want to show bruises or cuts in a photo shoot?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll sustain the objection.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, redirect. Redirect.
Ms. Roberts, how many times have you seen Mr. Depp consume drugs?
Objection leading.
All right, sustained.
Ms. Berderhoff asked you about Mr. Depp passed out on the beach. How would you describe Mr. Depp when you saw him on the beach?
He was passed out. I picked him up and brushed him off, and I left him underneath I believe he was in a hammock, and I believe he had fallen asleep, or he was asleep, and the hammock had overturned, and I picked him up and brushed him off and left him underneath the lanai with Jack.
Okay, no further questions.
All
Thank
right,
you,
is
Ms.
this witness
Roberts.
subject to recall, Ms. Roberts?
Yes,
All
potentially.
right.
So we'll,
Ms. Roberts, since you're subject to recall, did not discuss your testimony with anybody and just did not watch anything about this case, okay, ma'am?
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.